Welcome to the March 6th meeting of the Board of Assessors. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. And with that, all members are present, as well as Alex and Colleen. And I will turn it over to Colleen but do we want to do the regular minutes first, I guess, and get that out of the way since it's on the agenda? Everybody have a chance to look at them? Any comments, corrections? No. I'll make the motion then. We accept the regular minutes of January 7th.
Wait,
as written.
Can you make a motion? You weren't here in January.
Right.
So I think.
Okay, I
You
viewed it and so
Okay.
forth and read the minutes.
I couldn't remember.
It's
Yeah,
fine
no,
if
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
all those in favor.
Aye.
And then
Brian,
it's edited for Brian to
because
sign it.
you were present.
Sorry. And while you're doing that, we can just move on to director's update, if that's good.
That sounds good.
Okay, so, it's been a busy couple of months. We have our 2 motor vehicle commitments that have gone out and a boat excise commitment, and we sent out those letters to the second homeowners to list everything, the forms of lists, and then our regular income and expense forms, the forms of list of businesses, and the 3 ABCs for tax exempt properties. So lots of phone calls, lots of busy flow. But we've made it through. For the most part, we have another little hiccup right now. Munis put through an update Tuesday morning that has taken away our ability. Munis is our financial software where we do all the billing, and we're not able to process abatements right now because there's a bug in the update and they can't pull it back. They have to fix it. So we have a lot of, we're still processing them on our end as much as we can so that the people know the adjusted amounts that they can pay. And we're working with the tax office to keep things running smoothly, but it's just, you never know.
Just another thing.
Another thing, and that's pretty much where we're working on getting everything out, as I'll discuss a little bit more for the RTE, just getting our applications and our letters out, and we're kind of going through another preliminary eligibility run through our list just to say, we think you should get the application. We're only going to mail it to the people who we have any inkling of suspicion that they would be eligible. So we're kind of going through that one more time. Mira is helping out with that, and we're hoping to mail it out mid-March, before the end of March. That is our goal.
I had a question on the personal property. I mean, I understand that it's like refrigerators and all that kind of stuff, but does it go down to like chairs and sofas and?
Yes.
It does. Oh,
Yep, so
okay.
basically all contents, non-affixed contents.
Other than clothing, I would assume.
Well, clothing counts too. If it's not if it's clothing that you pack back up and take to your home, but if it lives
If it stays there all year.
Clothing, then it's part of your home.
Okay.
So if your house was empty, you wouldn't have personal property tax?
If you can show us that your house was completely empty
Oh, wow.
as of January 1st, you went through and took a whole video of the nothingness that was there, then we'd be able to abate the personal property tax. That's why homes that are under construction don't have a personal property attached to them, because they can't technically live in them because they're not finished, there's no stuff.
I always learn something at this meeting.
So I'll hop into more detail on the RT in a second, but first I just wanted to briefly throw out there the HERO Act discussion. You might hear the chatter from other towns. A lot of other towns are putting this forward to potentially adopt it because it's something that's just come down from the state. And part of it includes adjustments or additional clauses that the town could adopt, at the town level. Clause 22I would make it so that this just applies to veterans exemptions. It'd make it so that we could adjust the exemption amount by the COLA, the annual COLA. So that's relatively small, like 3%, 2.5%, but it is more some years. So that would be an adjustment each year, and it would be cumulative that it would build next year, to that amount. So that's 400 for clause 22, and then 1,000 for 22E, and, obviously it wouldn't, for full exemptions, you're not doing anything more than the full, so it would just apply to those ones. And then 22J, that gives the town the ability to double the exemption, basically, or to increase it up to 100%. So you could double it, you could just start with 5%, 10%, you could kind of ease your way in, but it increases that set exemption. So if you were to go all in, that'd give, 800 instead of the 400, or 2,000 instead of the one. So the issue with some of that, we always as a board tend to go to the max that the state allows us to for the exemptions in Eastham anyhow. But all of our exemptions, as I'm sure you've heard me mention before, they all come out of our overlay account. So as we have it presently, let's see, this is the previous year, basically without the HERO Act, we have $87,267 in exemptions that we issue just on an annual basis. It changes each year slightly, but that's our most recent data. And it would bump it up to, if we went to the all-in doubling. I didn't really calculate the COLA adjustment because that's minimal. But if we were to go all in with doubling them, it'd bring it up to 118,639. This is taking into account, well, this isn't taking into account, after that, the state does reimburse us some of that, but we still have to have that in our overlay to be able to take on those exemptions initially, and then it comes in to a different account when we get the reimbursement for that. So it'd be an additional 32,000 roughly to our overlay that would need to buffer in advance of doing this. Which doesn't sound that bad in and of itself in a regular year, but since this year, we're also potentially having to field the RTE overlay, which at its minimum, well, the discussion right now is I think like 5% easing in at 5%, and that'd be 200,000 that we're looking for to put in the overlay. So to say, oh yeah, we need 32,000 more on top of that, it's just not a good year for Eastham to necessarily to do this. So I think we'll throw it out there to you guys to make a decision to, as to whether or not you think the town should do it going forward. But I think it would probably be a next year thing if we do, because it would have to go to town meeting. So.
I for one think we ought to vote for the COLA, because that's not going to even start this year. That would be next year's amount, correct?
Well, right, everything that the RTE and the.
Oh,
these
it's all,
exemptions,
okay.
It's all for fiscal 26
Okay.
that we're talking. I didn't calculate the COLA percentage.
Yeah, but it's 3-4% at most.
It's minimal.
I just, if the word gets out about the HEROES Act and we just push it off completely, I think some people are gonna be upset.
Right.
And so what I would like to do is to at least start something. That's me, that's,
Right.
Brian and Andrew may have other,
I think
feelings.
the issue might be also the timing with the warrant for town meeting, I think is already in its creation, period.
oh, I know that,
So
yeah.
I don't know, we'd have to be able to have that edited and get on it in order to adopt even the COLA adjustment.
Have other towns actually bought into it, or are they in the
They're
same boat?
proposing that some are, all the towns that have the RTE recently, or even just, in the past year or two, they are not doing it at this time because they already have, there's too much going on with their overlay to do that at this time.
Is there a way that we can say that in the following year that we will address this?
Yeah, I think that would be.
So like an announcement in the sense that we will?
Right. I think that would be a good stance to take, that this year, we don't have the funding to do it this year for fiscal 26, when I say this year. But that you'd be looking to go all in even, or whatever your opinions are, whatever amount you want to, either it's definitely for that, you can do the COLA and whatever percent you'd like. So you could say that you would definitely want it on next year's town meeting warrant to go in effect fiscal
I
27.
just feel like the veterans are gonna get really kind of screwed
Mhm.
in the next couple of months. And anything that we can do to help them
Mhm.
is something that we should do.
And I also wonder, you know, as you say, if we ease into the RTE,
Mhm.
is it going to be the following year? We're doing something a little more, and so it's still an issue, you
Right.
know, dealing with the RTE and the.
And the
veterans.
veterans, so what our expectation, based on other towns who have implemented it, and just kind of looking at what what was the overlay hit the first year, the second year, the third year. It looks like the first and second year, it does go down the second year, and then by the third year, they're able to go down to like, you know, instead of say $200,000, I think what that was, a certain percentage. I don't remember exactly, but it's only like 3% of the total that you'd need to buffer, because at that point you have everybody kind of in the habit, you know who they are, they know they have to apply, they want it off their tax bill, so it's kind of like anyone who thinks they're eligible is already kind of coming to us in advance. So it definitely goes way down by the third year. The second year, it's kind of, it's all over the place.
I just had an idea that we could go ahead and do it and let the select board say yay or nay.
Well, it would be the town meeting that it has to be
It
voted
doesn't go before the select board first,
at first.
right? So they could block it if they so chose.
Yes, I don't know. My concern would more be getting it in the.
In the warrant.
Yeah, exactly, because no matter what they say, if it's not in there, it doesn't.
Yeah, I can see that, because I mean, that would have to go through the lawyers and all that kind of stuff, and they're already got a bit on their plates.
Right, I think we might be kind of down to the wire to do it this year. I see what you're saying. I think potentially vowing to do everything the fall, I know we're not even in fiscal 26, and we're talking about it and then talking about the year after already, so that's very far in advance.
Yeah, I don't want them to feel like we're not paying attention to them.
Right.
And not helping them when potentially we could be helping them.
Right. I will say one other thing that came from that act is the ability to abate their motor vehicle excise tax without having to have them go through the RMV. I mean, they used to have to be not only deemed disabled by the VA, but they also had to have a doctor from the RMV consider
Okay.
them a disabled veteran to be eligible for a plate. So now it's only that letter from the VA is making them eligible for us to just wipe out if they're 100%
Yeah.
disabled, then we just abate their motor vehicle bill in full. So we did a lot of that this year. Just in advance, without them coming to us, we just said, hey, we made this go away for you. So we did, there is one little thing we were able to do. But there's a lot more we could do, obviously, with this, so.
Brian, what's your opinion?
Well, I'm a veteran, so I probably should not.
Have an official opinion, right,
You know what my opinion would be.
as a
but-
veteran.
But I would abstain from this particular application.
Andrew?
I mean, if the timing doesn't work, the timing doesn't work, I guess. And if we, you know, have some language that we are not ignoring them or forgetting them, and that, you know, will.
I can talk to Rich after this and see if it's too late to at least get the COLA one on there, the 22I,
But the
Yeah.
select board still have to approve before
and
it
that would be
goes
the
on the warrant.
24th at their next meeting.
Mhm.
So,
It goes to print usually like April 1st or something like that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I would appreciate if you would, just so that we could,
I can reach out.
you know, and I appreciate Rich's position, because I mean, he's gotta find the money someplace for the RTE if
Right.
that happens.
Do you remember what the COLA was this year, 3% or 2.3?
I don't recall, I'm sorry. Look it up, but
I'm just going to see.
feels like a lifetime ago. Back July.
I know.
When we
I don't
looked
know, I
at-
thought it was 3.41 or something like that, but
Yeah.
I don't know why I come up with that number, but
Okay, well, I mean, 3% would be like 2,600. 3.41, just under 3,000, so that's pretty minimal to the overlay. I know that's still, with the other stuff, it's still, anything more looks overwhelming, but if you just focus on the small amount that would be asking to do for this, it would be pretty minimal of an impact. So we could. And then to be followed by whatever would recommend for J up to 100% and. I mean, I think. Potentially, the second year, even if we went like half in with J, like 50%, I still don't think. And with the RTE, I still think would be under the 200,000 that we're looking for this year, so I think it could be a manageable thing.
the 200,000 though, isn't that basically because the feeling is, and from other towns, that a portion of the population that is eligible for it won't put the paperwork in until after the tax bills go out.
Right.
And so that's, the ones that go in after that have to be repaid via the overlay accounts.
Exactly, yes,
And once you go through one season, at least the word will be out pretty well, that this is a potential savings for the homeowners.
right.
So it shouldn't be as great
It
as,
shouldn't be as great. I think 60% was the best return prior to setting the tax rate that any town saw. Even with the best efforts of, putting it in every avenue they could. Still, there are a lot of people that don't catch on or,
there's a lot of elderly people that just don't pay attention.
right, and feel overwhelmed probably with the gathering of the documents that we'll talk about next.
Yep.
So, I mean, we're gonna do our best to get a better return than 60% and,
Yeah, you can only do so much though.
right, exactly.
Um.
Okay, do we need an official,
I think we should have a vote on trying to add the COLA,
okay,
because that, well, I just think it's an official act in a sense, so I'd put a motion forward that we add the COLA to the veterans account as stated in the Heroes Act.
Second.
All those in favor?
Abstain.
so I will check with Rich and see if we can make that time frame work. And if not, then it would be more of a vote to do it the year after, along with clause
Yep.
22J.
I'd also like it noted that Brian abstained because he is a veteran.
Yep, I put a
Okay.
note on there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Otherwise, it'd be like.
Okay, so I'll move on to the next bullet here, which is a review of the RTE application. So I've made some copies I'll pass them out together. The top is the letter of explanation and the second page is the actual application itself.
Thank you.
So this is very much a work in progress. Every time we edit it, we look at it again and change half the things that we have on there. It's a lot of information and we're trying to make it as clear as possible to just minimize the amount of, obviously, questions and phone calls that we have about it. So, I mean, it's kind of coupled with the letter to explain who needs to do what and where and what we're asking for. So that's why it's very lengthy. Essentially, we need from every applicant their tax return, their driver's license, their registration. A lot of people in Eastham have PO boxes.
Hmm.
And that may also be reflected on their state tax return and federal tax return. So there's not like and I'm looking for suggestions here, there's not a great alternative to prove what your address is. There's not, I mean, there maybe are some other federal forms. I don't know if anything with Social Security requires that you don't use a PO box, but use, I think,
Well, wouldn't your like electric bill?
well,
But electric bill, like you can have that
change it
set
to
up,
go anywhere.
yeah, like,
So we didn't want to use that as a qualifying measure because it could be false
Yeah.
proof. So we actually said utility bills are not acceptable as a form of determining domicile. Driver's license, I believe, would have the address on it. So that's important. Your registration. I don't know. Does it have PO boxes sometimes?
I don't know.
I'd have to look at it.
yeah, it must, because that's where, a lot of times that's where they're
Where it's
built,
mailed,
yeah.
right, so,
But census, we're gonna be,
right, because we're leaning heavily on the census. But sometimes. Things can get confusing, because even on the census, sometimes people have the mailing address of their census going to Harvard or
Mm.
something, and so it's. A lot of it is mysterious when you look at, there's a lot of, not black and white going on when you're trying to qualify people, so. We had put a couple other. Options that we just saw on like the standard, RTE application, like a copy of a gun permit or other federal form. Those have to have the physical address on there.
There's a gun permit? Is that federal?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was all done by the towns and
It's
stuff.
done through the town, but it's a federal,
Okay. I'm glad I looked here and it says the front page of your tax return.
right, and
I was
what's
thinking,
really important, I know. We want everyone to know to redact their information. We don't want to be. We don't want that, you know, and we don't want to be in charge of doing that ourselves or having sensitive information come into our hands. We just,
when you say redact, what do you what do you want redacted? Because,
anything financial or personal, like your social security number.
Yeah.
Or any of the income.
we
most
just
of-
really need to see their name and their
Yeah,
address,
name
that's
and
all we
address.
need to see for this
because I
purpose.
think that ought to be stated, because I would
So-
look at it and not really understand what you
Yeah.
wanted redacted.
You
Right.
have it in the letter.
Yeah, so-
Oh, is it? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No,
the
we
letter
can-
is also, I mean, we kept adding more and more to the letter.
Mhm.
I don't have a ton more to add, but I did say, need a copy of the first page, of your most recent federal tax return showing your primary address. We ask that you cover, redact your social security numbers and all income information. So that kind of.
Yep.
Hopefully people will read the letter in full and then move on to filling out the application and. We'll refer back to it if they have questions, because a lot of things are answered in this letter, we feel, hopefully not in a confusing way. When there are multiple owners, this is where it gets a little tricky. We want them to be signing, we have several affidavits on the back of the form. If you are an owner that has other property elsewhere, we need you to fill out this affidavit stating that you're not getting an exemption in another location. And if we find that that's falsely stated, then you're barred for 5 fiscal years, and you have to, if it's already been granted to you, you have to, we'll issue an omitted bill and you'll pay it back to us. So. And that's,
Other than the financial part, is it somehow criminal? I would think it would be, but I
Right.
don't know.
I mean, I would hope that. Not being able to do it for a long time would be reason enough for you to just be. Honest and not try to
Hmm.
get an exemption in 2 places, but we do have a lot of resources to be able to know that information, so it's. It's more work on our end, but we're gonna be doing that with any co-owners anyways, so, we just want on top of that, them attesting to the fact that they're not getting it, so we can kind of couple that. So that would also be properties that are in trust, multiple trustees, we want, the trustees are not getting exemptions anywhere else, so. It's a little work on their part, that, especially if there are several owners, to have them all fill out this form.
But we do have this affidavit as well as the application online. So if, let's say you have a co-owner who lives in Pennsylvania, they can just go on the website and fill it out. You don't have to send them a paper copy. So we're trying to make it as accessible as possible and easy for people to do this. And still qualify in a timely fashion.
Right. I mean, I'm just thinking about my own personal situation, where we did become full-time residents. At the start of the year.
Right.
I think we did it by January 1. We had our driver's licenses back in November, December. But our 2025 tax return will still show a New Jersey
Right,
return.
so for that, we're trying to figure out all these,
Yeah.
so this is a really good example, and what did we say exactly? We're still trying to figure out those ones who have kind of recently become, because your tax return is gonna say something different, and you didn't move at a time of year where you then filled out like
I mean, I have asked
Supplemental.
Stacy, but page 1 of our return, I don't know if she's putting our current address or using our old address. I mean, it's all New Jersey income,
right,
but she might be using our Massachusetts address. I don't
You
know what
think
she would-
if that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things we've discussed when people kind of are in that situation is that by the time you apply for this residential tax exemption, you would have filed your taxes and you probably want them to come to Eastham. Regardless of what state you earn the income, you're gonna want the return to come back to Eastham. So that's hopefully that's gonna be the case, that they're not sending it to New Jersey, but they're sending it to Eastham. It's unfortunately, it's gonna be work in progress, how we determine this, and it's gonna be unique to the applicants.
I don't know what the actual requirement is when you look at when you're filing a tax return of what you're supposed to put as that address. I don't know. Is it just where where a return would be sent? I mean, most returns are direct. If you're getting a refund, it's deposited.
Yeah, I think at this point now with returns, you can put your checking account information.
Right,
And it goes
and it just
directly
goes
into
there.
Right, but you still put in information on
Yeah.
where you live and
Yeah,
everything,
yeah,
so.
yeah.
I don't know how that shows up on a paper copy. I mean, who looks at those anymore?
Well, I mean, but it's also, I'm not a tax person, not a CPA, I don't do anything like that, but your primary residence, you're allowed to exempt your interest and property tax from, right? So it would be in more than one place that this is your address, right? I would think.
We'll see. I think that's maybe when we need to see more of your tax return.
Right.
Yeah, and it could just be, we're not looking for numbers, we're just looking what you stated, and you might have to bring the whole.
I
set.
wouldn't think there'd be that many of those. I mean, maybe a dozen if you will, but I mean,
Of people who moved here recently.
Recently,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean,
not
I mean,
that it's, it's more work
There might be
naturally.
a lot
Right.
of part-time residents that are trying to
Right,
become
you-
full-time
Right,
residents right
exactly.
now.
You never know. I mean, this is quite an incentive, so.
Yeah.
I've seen people do a lot just to get out of their $7 personal property tax bill, and we're talking like maybe thousands here, so, yeah.
yeah, I think that's one part, because we're going by January 1 of 25, so if someone, a part-time resident, is considering that, at this point, it's too late for them, and they would have to prove, and that's gonna be the burden on them, unfortunately, we can only ask for these many things, and then people need to get creative and show us that they were here, this was their domicile, so we're not gonna have an answer for every situation, but at the end of the day, the burden is on the applicant to prove. If we cannot find the information based on the sources that we have, then unfortunately, it's a next year kind of thing. So, we're gonna try to work with everyone, but there's only two,
Right.
and hopefully with Mira, three of us, and we also have other things that we handle, so it's not like we can be full-time trying to figure out,
Investigators trying to-
yeah.
Right.
And this won't be a done deal till August.
Right, right, yeah, we could be doing this all for nothing, but
But we still have to
We
do it
still
to
have to do it.
pre-qualify people, so that part is gonna happen, and these questions are gonna arise, no matter if we end up doing it or not.
Mhm.
so we're trying to look at any possible scenario, like, well. It's not a cookie cutter situation where everyone's just gonna, those are gonna be the easy ones, that we can just say, oh yeah, you clearly are eligible. But what if this, or what if this, and we have a lot of trusts in East
Oh,
Hampton.
yeah.
A good percentage of our properties are in trusts, and it's. You have to be a trustee in order to be eligible for this, so that is going to be complicated for a lot of people, or discouraging for a lot of people who have. Done all the right things with their, finances to remove themselves from ownership to protect their assets. But now it makes them ineligible for any program, so we'll have a lot of that coming our way. It's just gonna be a bit of a challenge. There are a few other scenarios I can't think of. We've tried to play out every possible what if and answer it ahead of time in the explanation letter. But if you guys wanna look that over when you have more time too, and you can just, any feedback. Or anywhere that you can just say that this is confusing, this needs clarification. Cause we're really trying to jumble a lot in there.
Is this
But this-
competent? Oh, I'm sorry.
This would take effect potentially for fiscal year 26,
Correct.
which
Begins July 1st, which is for, this is. If you get it into us and they vote it in August, then this will be on your tax bill when you get it in September.
so why the January 1 required?
Okay, so for any fiscal year, the qualifying date for any exemption is the tax date is January 1st. And the same thing with your valuation, you're being billed for the market value of the home as of January 1st. So it's funny how spread out the dates are, but that is the tax date. So, and that's from the state, that's how the exemptions are all written, you must qualify. Well,
Well, not the,
right, not some when their
July.
income,
veterans are July 1 too.
veterans are, right, so it depends, but this one, the tax date is January 1st, preceding the fiscal year
Mhm.
start. So it's too late to squirrel and get it all together,
Right.
unless it's really true, then you'd be able to for all these things.
Is this confidential at this point?
What they submit to us,
No.
No, this
These-
copy,
This
that-
information,
well, it's a working
paperwork.
copy, it's not confidential, I mean, we're discussing it in a recorded meeting.
No, okay,
So.
but it's not something that we can't share with our spouses or.
You can, I mean, it could change still.
Yeah. These
We're-
are- These are
this is not the
drafts.
final draft. This was, even this one looked like this at 10:42. So it's been changing a lot.
I think it's just not something you wanna share with many people, thinking that that's what they're gonna receive for them to
Right.
kind of get ready, but.
Any input is welcome.
Okay.
So, and that can be done outside of a meeting. You can even just email me and say, this part, So. We'll move on from that. I'm going to be going to the March 24th select board meeting because they would like to see what the process looks like. So I'll be showing them a better edited letter at that point. And
You-
the
would you
final
like
application
support, or-
draft. If you'd like to come along. Support's always welcome,
You said March 24th?
March 24th. So. That is that, and I kind of did the explanation letter along with the application, so that's, I think, all that I have for general business, unless you guys have any other questions about it.
So with that we will close the general business portion and go into executive session and not to return to the general session. Oh, I guess I need a motion to do that. Make a motion.
So moved.
A second? I'll second it. All,